What's up, everyone? Fear and the coronavirus. The latest coronavirus, COVID-19, is kicking off right now, yeah? And a lot of people are fearful. A lot of people are worried. A lot of people are anxious. It's provoking emotions, tension, that fearful anxiety, kind of dread in the body when you're reading about this thing and thinking thoughts, projecting out into the future about what situation we might be in tomorrow, a week, a month from now, 3 months from now. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm under no illusion this is a bad one. People have died and many more are going to die before this thing peaks. And other systems are going to be severely affected. I'm under no illusion I've got family members that are at high risk. The good news is, it's currently stabilizing in China. So we know this thing peaks, and we know that at some point we will peak before we get that relief of the decline in the spread of this thing. But until then, how do we deal with the fear? Now, some people, when you even mention fear and calming fears around this thing, it's like they're thinking that the fear is the only thing that's going to drive taking the proactive action. But proactive action can be taken without there being this underlying anxiety. We can still accept the reality of this situation and take the appropriate action, following all of the guidelines, following all of the precautions, self-isolating if need be, all of these different things that if you look at the correct sources, you'll find the guidelines for. But once all is said and done, we have this propensity for the thoughts in our minds to continue and continue and continue, and we're continuously identified with them in the sense that our attention is focused down onto them. And this thought about the future that's filled with fear takes itself on a journey, develops into a story, a mind movie that we pay attention to. And up to a point serves us, up to a point we're projecting possible circumstances, and then we're taking the appropriate action. But there comes another point at which these fearful thoughts just generate unnecessary suffering. Watching too much of the news when it's no longer serving you, when you already know the guidelines and you already know the precautions that you need to take. If you're still indulging in this drama that is the media around the whole thing, to the point that it's unhealthy, it's going to unhealthily affect your well-being and your emotional state. But there is something good about the fear in a way, because what is fear made of? We have this fearful emotion, which is basically made up of bodily sensations. If you really look at it, if I read a bit of news about coronavirus now and I start projecting and thinking about potential terrible outcomes, I'm going to provoke this adrenaline, this energy. In me, it kind of manifests in the body, around about here. It's like an uncomfortable energy. And it's like a tightness, a tension, a recoiling. It's sensations in the body, which correspond to thoughts in the mind, fearful thoughts about this thing, projections, mind movies about terrible futures. So you have your experience, and then you have those bodily sensations, and you have those thoughts. But there's an awareness that underlies those things, those perceptions, those thoughts. There's the medium that allows them to exist in the first place, your awareness. There's the space in which they exist. And when you become aware of this awareness, you're really tapping into the ground of being. You're really tapping into the inner stillness, the peace within you. Just becoming aware that there is that ever-present awareness, that presence, that beingness that underlies your experience. Paying some attention to that taps you in to the inner stillness and the peace. Because it's timeless, because it's not in the story. See, you can spend all day having your mind focused on the fearful story about a particular situation. And like I say, thoughts about it, of course, are necessary because we need to be sensible, because we need to take proactive action and take precautions. But what we don't want to do is create this cycle of fearful thought, fearful emotion, fearful thought, fearful emotion, which spins round and round and works itself up with more and more momentum and more energy until you're in a panic attack about this thing. We're in a particular challenging situation, but there's an opportunity to awaken here. There's an opportunity to further catalyze your awakening. Becoming awake to the awareness and the consciousness that underlies this experience. And bringing consciousness to your emotions, bringing consciousness to your thoughts around these things. So that you can realize that there's some space around them, so that you can realize that you're more than the thoughts, you're more than the feelings. There's also this stillness within you that's accessible all the time. And it's not a thought to get there, you see. It's a movement of attention, it's a movement of awareness. You see, I can be thinking of something, right? Let's say I'm thinking of what I had for dinner. And then there's a knock at the door, and that takes my attention. Now, I might have a thought about that, but my focus onto that wasn't a thought. It was a movement of focus, of attention, becoming aware of that knock at the door. And in the same way, it's a movement of attention into the present moment, onto your sense perceptions, on to the emotion, actually feeling it, realizing that it's not comfortable, but that it won't kill you. And becoming aware of your own awareness. So there's two levels there, right? There's moving attention from thought into sense perceptions, into the now reality, into the life that you have in the now, separate from the story about it. And that takes you into presence. That takes you much deeper into the dimension of depth within you and that inner stillness and that inner peace. And then there's becoming aware of your own awareness, the very stillness, the very beingness that underlies everything. And going there, using this opportunity that when you've taken the precautions, when you've taken that action, and all you should really be doing is just getting on with your life, or relaxing, or chilling, or meditating, or whatever you want to do, enjoying yourself, being at peace. Once all is said and done, it's coming back to now. Coming back to this space, right? See, in this space, there is no time. There is no thought. There's just awareness. There's just what is. And it's the acceptance of this situation on an internal level which slows down the mind or even stops the thoughts altogether and brings you into this space. In accepting it on an internal level doesn't mean that we have to accept it on an external level. We could have a World War II style mobilization of resources to tackle this thing on an external level, which could be seen as a firm non-acceptance of this situation. But on an internal level, the acceptance brings peace. The acceptance slows the mind and brings us into the now reality, the present moment, realizing our own awareness and making our home as awareness so that we're not lost in the world, so that the situation of the world doesn't dominate and destroy our sense of inner peace. Hope this helps. Peace.